Hi, my name is Berthine Crèvecoeur West. What's your name? That may seem like a simple question, but it's actually layered with complexity. That's what brings me here today. I was made in America with Haitian parts. My mom, Tulia, and my father, Robert, were originally from Haiti, so I'm a proud first gen. From the time I was 2 months old to 2.5 years old, I lived in Haiti. Little did I know how that experience was fundamental to my identity. My Aunt Maurice loves to tell a story of my first day in nursery school. As you can see, I've always been a fan of a Sam pantsuit. That day in school, the teacher was taking attendance, and she kept calling out everybody's names, but there was one name that she kept repeating. Bertine Bernard, Bertine Bernard. Finally, after all the kids had answered, there was just one that didn't. Want to guess who? So she came up to me and she said, "What's your name, my dear?" And my tiny voice, I said, "Nus Keskes." You see, Nush was a name my eldest sister Marie had given me because I was her tiny doll. And Kestes, well, I was only 2. I hadn't quite worked up to being able to say Crèvecoeur just yet. But Bernard, that is another family name of mine that I cherish very deeply and that is a huge part of my identity, but it wasn't my name. One thing I knew at that tiny age was very profound. My identity was my introduction to the world. It was my beginning. My mother had always wanted a daughter named Jennifer. She already had my 2 elder sisters, Marie and Rose. So when I came along, I was her last shot at getting a Jennifer. So the day I was born, for a few hours, I was Jennifer. My father was in Montreal the day I was born. He jumped on a plane, moved to New York, ran to the hospital with all of the energy that only a Haitian dad can bring. Think Mufasa from The Lion King when Simba was born. That kind of energy. He saw my face and he proudly said, "She's going to be called Bertine." He took half of my mother's name and half of his name, which is a common Haitian tradition. So while other people in the world share my name, and I had the pleasure to meet them, an 80-year-old Jewish girl, an 85-year-old Muslim grandmother, my name is uniquely mine because it's imprinted with the story of 2 people who loved me into existence. Now, names are not just how we identify ourselves. Names are not just what we are called. Names are data. And data is a truth teller. It tells us where we've been in our past historically. It tells us where we are right now in our future. It tells us where we are right now with current trends. And it also serves as a catalyst for future decisions we might make. Data tells your history, the love story that brought you here, your legacy, and insights into your culture. Names matter. So who are you? How did you get your name? Who gave it to you? So I want you to shout it out. Tell me, what does your name mean?
God and Judge.
Oh, that's strong.
Guardsman of the Northridge Rock.
Whoa, powerful, powerful. Let's see the end of the back.
Advisor.
Advisor. Very cool, you guys.
Yeah.
Say it again.
Lily of Valley.
Lily of the Valley. Oh my gosh. Okay, very cool. Well, guess what? Bertine is a German name that means the bright one. And Crèvecoeur is a French name that means heartbreaker. Cool, right? So while I love a good story, I also love data. Let's talk about the science of names. Data tells us that names are the hardest piece of information to remember. I thought to myself, how can that be? Names are data, and that's one of the most important pieces of our lives. It tells us who we are, how we are, and sometimes why we are. So what I've learned is, in order for us to actually learn to remember names, you need three things. We need intentionality, we need effort, and we need presence. And I don't mean this. So what happens when someone mispronounces your name? How does it make you feel? Well, data tells us when someone mispronounces our name, we perceive them to be less competent, less trustworthy, and less intelligent. It's more than just leaving a bad impression. And this may not be true about them, but this is what them not taking the time to learn how to say our names correctly leads us to see about that. That has got to be painful for first impression. Now, not everybody's perfect. We get that, right? I've been called a variety of things over the years. I've been called Bertha, Bernie, Beth. Someone even once called me Berthuzela. I don't know what part of the alphabet they were working with that day. But I let people mispronounce my name for a long time. They said Berthine because they assumed that was the English version with the hard H. And what happened? I allowed them, by doing this, to make myself smaller. I thought if I make myself easier to understand, maybe they'll accept me. Maybe I won't be an outsider. But there's a cost to that. And the cost is my authenticity and my joy. Now, people change their names for a variety of reasons. People fleeing war and devastation coming to the U.S., they change and shorten their names for protection, for safety. Other people, artists, actors, even CEOs, they change their name for access. Doors that otherwise would have been closed are now open. Helen Bolashane Adu, you know her as Sade. Ramon Ceres is now Martin Sheen. And Jamie Foxx's birth name is Eric Marvin Bishop. These are strategic moves. Our names are honor, and we carry them as a banner and as a shield. As a banner, when we say our names, we're stepping forward to the world and saying, here I am. As a shield, we use our names by changing them sometimes, by shortening them in order to protect ourselves, in order to provide security, in order to keep ourselves safe, mentally, emotionally, and sometimes physically. So what would happen if we didn't have to sanitize our names, shorten our names, change our names? What would start to happen would be building the seeds of community, planting them, watching them grow, seeing the flowers and the fruit in them. What would happen is partnership. What would happen when someone says someone else's name correctly is that they would be saying, I see you, I hear you, you belong here. Data tells us that diverse executive teams outperform non-diverse executive teams by 36% with regard to profitability. So what does that say? Diversity leads to innovation. But the secret ingredient is that belonging leads to performance. And that all starts with a name. So pronouncing someone's name increases rapport. It increases trust and mutual respect. These are characteristics you will find in high-performing teams. So saying someone's name correctly is not only a good thing, it is a business imperative. So sometimes, a lot of times, people simply don't say my name. I get it. Hey, or how you doing? There's one woman, shall not be named, that I met for years. It took her years to say my name. And that became kind of fun to me. Well, how long is it going to take her? Now, people don't say my name because they feel discomfort. And that discomfort is facing fear. The fear of getting it wrong. The fear of being corrected. The fear of embarrassment. But I invite them to sit in that uncomfortable space with me, because this is how we start to build empathy. So one of the things that I love to do when I go to conferences and workshops is to wear a name tag that has my name spelled out phonetically. And then people who would otherwise run away from me for the fear of saying my name correctly, they actually gravitate towards me. And then it becomes kind of a game. They want to see if they can actually pronounce that name. And so they try to do it. Some succeed, some don't, but we always end up laughing about it. Then we end up talking about what my name means, where it came from. Why is it even spelled that way? And so what happens? Because I wore that name tag, I gave them a tool. And this is where kindness starts. And because I'm giving them time to process it, I'm showing them empathy. And now what's become an uncomfortable scene, beginning of a partnership. This is strategic networking. So one time I worked for a company and I was a member of a team. And the leader of that team consistently pronounced my name incorrectly. It got to the point where it was just easier for me to let her do it. But then what started to happen was that other members of the team started to do the same thing. Why? Because the leader was taken, and I clearly didn't say anything. I thought it was easier, but I started to feel invisible. One day, instead of pronouncing my name incorrectly, she snapped her fingers to get my attention. That was my last day working at that firm. And this should be a lesson to company and team leaders. What happens when you don't pronounce someone's name correctly or you try? You lose talented, qualified, engaged talents. So what happens when employees' names are remembered? People try to get them right. You see engagement increases, and that looks like joy, productivity, collaboration, innovation, performance, and guess what? Higher profits. Again, a business imperative. So what do we do in real life? What does this actually look like? When you meet someone whose name may be unfamiliar to you, first, you ask them their name, then you pause. Then you ask them after you smile to say it again. Then you practice saying their name, and then rinse and repeat. So now, I'm going to conclude where I began. What's your name? Not the name that you use as a nickname, not the name that you shorten to make others feel comfortable, not the name that's your username, but the name that you were given, the name that you chose. I want you to see this question as an invitation, because this is where human connection begins. This is our strategy for building community and partnership. So I'll ask one more time, and I'll say it yet again. Hi, my name is Berthine Crèvecoeur West. What's your name?